Hey everyone, Stacks here. First of all, I want to say thank you to all my new subscribers. I had a huge amount of growth on the channel here in the last 2 weeks. It's been absolutely amazing. Thanks to everyone who's taken the time to hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Now, as far as Absolute Carnage, we are quickly approaching the halfway point for this event. And as of right now, Carnage continues to rip through everybody who previously had a symbiote. The Scorpion's already fallen. Carnage is in hot pursuit of Deadpool, Venom, Spider-Man. Norman Osborn's already been brought back under control. Miles Morales has fallen in this fight. He's been now placed under control of Carnage. So there's really, truly a lot of pieces moving right now. All that being said, Symbiote Spider-Man and Scream don't really have a lot that take place during each of these issues. Not to say what happens in these issues isn't significant, it's just at the pace that this event is going, this almost seems like I'm able to catch my breath. All that being said, I'm going to do Scream number 2 first, and then I'm going to do the Symbiote Spider-Man number 1. I felt like Scream had more action, but Symbiote Spider-Man was just better storytelling. So jumping in on Scream, you got Cullen Bunn writing this thing, and then you have Geraldo Sandoval and Alex Arizmendi, I think is how you pronounce it, as on the pencils. This book starts right where number 1 left off. You have Andy Benton, formerly Mania, now cursed with the Hellmark, about to face off against Scream. And you have Carnage through the symbiotic link telling Scream, look, capture her, bring her to me so that I can claim both of your codices. Now, taking down Andy Benton isn't going to be easy, especially being that she, because of the Hellmark, can use Hellfire and generate Hellfire as a weapon. And while this fight goes back and forth, as Scream starts to get the upper hand, suddenly she starts having this internal dialogue that we saw back in issue 1. And the reason this is happening is because you have the remnants of Donna Diego's personality inside the symbiote codex. You have Patricia Robertson, who Scream just took over in the last issue, and then you have actual Scream, the symbiote. All three of those personalities are bouncing around in this girl's head right now. Go ahead and add that Carnage is talking to her and controlling her through the symbiotic link, and you got all kinds of mess going on in her head. Now, when Scream stops attacking and starts having this freak out moment, Andy Benton doesn't continue her attack. She backs off and is just kind of like, who are you? What is going on? And that's when Scream rips the mark of Null, the downward spiral, and throws it against the wall. And when she does, Patricia Robertson is able to gain consciousness again and is able to take control. And at that point, once it's just Patricia Robertson and Scream, they're able to discuss and exchange that knowledge of who Andy Benton is, and explain to her that it was that mark of Null that was causing them to attack her. So since that symbol of Null is still just sitting there, Andy Benton just blasts it with some Hellfire and destroys it. From there, you get a really cool 2-page spread that's just got dialogue littered all over it, basically summarizing that Carnage is after the codexes. Sorry, codices, I always get that wrong. And just to summarize the rest of what happens, basically Scream and Andy Benton decide to take the fight to Carnage. They show up and they start throwing down against a bunch of the 4-armed doppelganger Carnages. And the combination of the two, with the Hellfire and Scream working, it's very effective. They save a handful of people, but then suddenly Scream starts to freak out again. She starts grabbing her head and she screams to Andy, telling her to run. And Andy tries to tell her to fight it, and she's like, look, you don't understand. His influence is so much stronger right now. He's so close. And right as she's about to spit it out, she gets interrupted by Carnage, who's standing right behind him, telling him, so sorry, did I interrupt something? Were you ladies gossiping? And he's already got the arms in the form of blades, and he's about to do some work. But we'll have to wait till Scream number 3 on that one, which won't be out till October. And I'll talk my review portion of Scream 3 at the very end after I talk about Symbiote Spider-Man number 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and say up front that I don't feel like the Symbiote Spider-Man tie-in to Absolute Carnage really is going to play in at all to the rest of the story, but what it does kind of create and tie up at the same time is some symbiote shenanigans all the way back in Spectacular Spider-Man number 99 and 100. Now, I went back and looked and I found one of these panels, but I didn't find all of them. So I think it may be over in Web of Spider-Man number 1. But regardless, what happens is when the symbiote escapes the Baxter building, in order to hunt down Peter Parker so it can go and reestablish his connection with him, he just inhabits a random tourist. Now, to this guy who happens to be a judge, and it plays out throughout the story, this is just like he had a blackout episode. He doesn't know what happened to him, how he got from one side of town to the other. Now, this guy goes on, he lives his life through a series of shenanigans. He has a run-in with the White Rabbit, who, while playing a practical joke and trying to get payback on him for her getting locked up, she ends up accidentally killing his son. Completely accidental. He ended up having a heart attack during a horribly planned out prank, and he passes away. Well, the judge, in turn, wants to get revenge on her, takes a gun, tries to shoot her while she's on trial. He ends up missing and killing an innocent bystander. Well, the judge ends up in prison with a bunch of people who take pleasure in the fact they now get to beat the crap out of the guy that put them in prison. So this former judge, over time, just becomes an old man and finds out he has terminal cancer, and they offer to basically free him so that he can live the last few months of his life in freedom. Well, after his parole hearing, he's hanging out, laying in the bed, when suddenly he hears a voice asking him, "Hey, how'd it go?" He turns around, looks out the window, and the White Rabbit is in his window asking him, "Hey, I've been keeping tabs on you. Sorry to hear about the whole terminal illness thing." Well, none of that really matters, because at that time, a guard shows up with the key, unlocks it, opens up the door, and reveals himself to be Carnage. And within a few short panels, our judge is now without a spine and without a codex. And with that, you have the conclusion of Absolute Carnage Symbiote Spider-Man #1. So looking at both books, this is an example of where price really does come into play here. Scream was a $3.99 book, and the Symbiote Spider-Man was a $4.99 book. I walked away from Scream kind of like, meh, it was okay. I mean, I'm interested to see what they do with Andy Benton and what they do with the Scream symbiote going forward, but overall, it was an okay book. I did think the Symbiote Spider-Man book had significantly better art, and though it has just a little bit of a tie-in to Absolute Carnage, I think it was a better story overall. That being said, it was a $4.99 book. It was an extra $1. That all comes into play when you're sitting there trying to figure out which book you're going to pick up. Overall, on these books, I would say if you're trying to get all the tie-ins for Absolute Carnage, by all means, go out there and pick it up. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend them. Not trying to be a dork about it, but just the Symbiote Spider-Man story didn't advance anything significant. And Scream, I'm okay with it. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. There are some other exciting tie-ins coming up, including Symbiote of Vengeance, basically the Ghost Rider tie-in to Absolute Carnage, and then of course Absolute Carnage versus Deadpool #2 is coming out, I believe, next week. So I'll be picking those up and checking those out for the tie-ins. And of course, when the main storyline hits in #3, Absolute Carnage #3, it's going to be awesome, I'm sure. So can't wait for that to happen. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you haven't yet, and you've checked out a couple of the videos here on the channel, or even if this is your first one and you've enjoyed it, hey, make sure you hit that subscribe button or hit the like and leave a comment below. Any of those interactions really help the channel grow, and I sincerely appreciate your help with that. Anyways, guys, that's all I got. Real Comic Stacks out.